しましょう。
Oh, it's a snake. He's gonna. Yeah. What if it's poisonous?
毒の種類の分析って僧侶の魔法だから得意じゃないんだよね。飛行魔法、あとどのくらい使える？魔力の消費が大きいので30分が限度ですね。30分じゃ町まではいけないね。
Uh-oh.
大げさだな。大丈夫だって。毒は気合でなんとかなるって師匠も言っていたぜ。
アイゼンって竜を混沌させるほどの猛毒の矢を受けてもピンピンしていたっけ？
He what?
ドン引きしている時点でおかしいのは
I don't think it was normal at all, no.
ハイター様の話によると冒険者の死因の2割は毒だそうです。
Ooh, no pressure.
本当に大丈夫だって。
数時間後には脳が溶け始め
Begin to melt?
死にます。
すごく怖い。
本来なら初期の段階でしか対処できませんが、私の弟ならあるいは。
兄貴、
Oh, that's him.
新しい風呂桶小さくない？
製品です。
やりすぎじゃない？手のひらサイズまで製品しちゃってんのうちくらいだよ。
それよりもザイン、この方を見てあげなさい。
Yeah, we saved you, save us.
兄貴、こいつらだよ。俺のこと助けてくれたのは。なんだ？蛇にでも。
Ew, look how it's bleeding.
これでチャラだな。兄貴、広場の手伝い行ってくる。
That was it?
ああ、
Guys, can we keep him? He wanted to be an adventurer. Can we keep him?
毒の反応が消えています。
どう思われますか、弟。
その首にかけている聖印、生徒から地方で最も優れている司祭に与えられるものだ。その回復のエキスパートが不治と判断した毒を一瞬で治療した。
That is crazy work.
これは天性の際だ。
やはりフリーレン様には分かりますか？
私のこと知っているの？
ハイター様から聞かされておりましたので。
Hi, let us be in here.
生徒から視察に来られたハイター様から授けられたものです。
Angel.
所詮私は田舎の僧侶。
Yeah.
これくらいしかありません。ザインの際は私の日ではない。
Oh.
男で一つで年の離れたザインを育ててきました。あの子は子供の頃冒険者になりたいとよく言っていた。
Yeah, I understand that.
夢や希望に満ちた目でそう言ったんです。でも今は私の若い頃にそっくりだ。
Oh.
つまらない人生でしょう。
Can we keep him?
あの子をこの村から連れ出してやってはくれませんか？あの子はずっと背中を押してくれる誰かを探しているんですよ。
悩むようなことじゃねえだろ。もう脳みそ鼻から出そうになる経験はごめんだぜ。
確かにここから先は僧侶がいた方が安心かもしれませんね。
Yes, so we're gonna keep him.
フリーレン様は何が不満なんですか？
Oh, she doesn't like the idea.
とにかく俺一人でも勧誘しに行くぜ。
Oh,
どこに？
to find him.
様はいつもこの下の酒場に入り浸っているそうです。
酒、タバコ、ギャンブル、さすがに生臭すぎないかな。
親睦を深めてるんだ。小僧もやるか？
Oh,
俺たち僧侶を探しているんだ。仲間にならないか？
冗談だろう。俺はこの村の僧侶だ。冒険になんか。
are you sure? You guys already have a priest.
それも一興か。座れしたるか。俺に勝てたら仲間になってやるよ。
本当か？
ええ。
What if he doesn't know how to gamble?
フリーレン様、今下からシュタルク様の悲鳴のような声が。
And good luck waking her up. Oh, she actually woke up. Never mind.
身ぐるみ剥がされてる。ひどい。誰がこんな。
悪
Yeah, I don't think he can.
身ぐるみ剥がされてる。
村長の独り勝ちさ。鬼人のごとき強さだぜ。仲間探してんだってな。他を当たれ。
冒険者になりたいんでしょ。
昔の話だって言ってんだろ
Obviously too late. We're literally asking.
う。もっと早くあいつを追いかけるべきだったんだ。ここにいるのは落ちぶれたパンツ一丁のおっさんだ。
Yeah, we have already one of those, so that's fine. You will fit right in. Like Stark is right there.
もう500年以上魔族との実戦はやってない。もう戦い方も忘れてしまった。きっと魔王と戦うのが怖かったんだろうね。もう取り返しのつかないほどの年月が経った。
それがどうしたフリーレン。
私は今の話を。
Oh, yeah. We're not talking about then, we're talking about now. Stop! Why are you such a bummer?
やっぱり私ザインのこと嫌いだ。
そうかい。だったら
だから意地でも仲間に誘うことにした。
Yeah.
わけわかんなすぎて怖い。
ありがとう。あったかい。
Oh, poor Stark.
収穫祭も近いし、ゆっくりしていけってタダで返してくださりました。よかったね、いい人たちで。シュタレク様、来てください。
なにその汚いものつまむような持ち方。
俺が一体何をしたって言うんだ。
It's just like that. See, he's the same as Stark. They're so similar.
やったのは俺じゃなくて村長だって。
It was the chief, yeah, for sure.
ごめんよ。
ましてやザイン様は僧侶なのに。
Yeah, he
酒を飲む
is.
僧侶はどうなのさ。
About a priest that drinks?
フリーレン様、
We
酒
already
は
know
百
one.
薬の長なんですよ。はいダメ。
Exactly. Heightened.
ザインは冒険者になるべきだと思うよ。
打って変わって随分協力的じゃねえか。
たまには背中を押してみるのもいいと思ったんだよ。勇者ヒンメルがそうしたよ。
Yeah.
どうやらこの冒険者たちは村に滞在することにしたらしい。あの日以来毎日のように俺を勧誘してくる。
Does he keep saying no?
諦めさせようと努力しても、
Are you serious?
夢や希望に満ちたあの時のあいつみたいな目で俺を冒険に誘いやがる。
You already regret it once. You want to regret it twice?
3年後の収穫祭までには戻る。覚悟が決まんねえならそん時でいい。
Oh, if he didn't come back for 3 years, I don't think it's there anymore.
こいつらに誘われるたびに思う。なんで今さら。
Because you will keep your life with these ones.
苦戦しているからね、参考にしたくて。
そうですね。酒にタバコにギャンブルに。
Another corrupt
それ
priest.
はもう知ってる。
あいつ本当に僧侶。
Are you sure he's a priest?
あとは年上のお姉さんが好きですね。
もはや破壊層じゃねえか。
年上のお姉さんか。
Yeah, he's into you
正
for your...
直そんな情報あってもな。
You're an older woman.
兄貴、新しい鎌だけど小さくない？これじゃ草刈りもまたお前らか。
Oh, oh, he left. Okay, nice. We're trying so hard.
ザイン、年上のお姉さんと旅がしたくないか。
バカかお前。そのためにガキの頃の俺は冒険者を目指したんだぜ。
Oh.
そのお姉さんはどこなの？
Duh, Freeman.
ザイン、私はエルフだ。お前よりもずっと年上。
This is so awkward.
そういえば兄貴もそんなこと言ってたっけ？
Yeah.
こんなのお姉さんじゃない。
仕方がない。本当はあまりこういうことはしたくなかったけれども。
What are you gonna do?
先生から教わった色仕掛けを使う時が来たようだね。チュッ。
何それ？
Yeah, that didn't do anything.
投げキッスだよ。坊やにはまだ早かったかな。
誰かこのお子様を連れて帰ってくれ。
エッチすぎる。
何なのお前ら。
おかしいな。
Yeah, but he loved women, especially you.
ヒンメル！罪な女だ。
You're a wicked woman! Oh my gosh.
腐っても聖職者ってわけか。強敵だぜ。
Formidable foe.
俺は冒険者になるつもりはない。
親友を追いかけたいんじゃないの？
あいつは3年後には帰ってくると言ったんだ。あれから10年も経った。
Yeah,
もう死んでいるに決まっ。
exactly that's what I said too.
会いに行ってもいないのに諦めるんだ。まだたったの10年だよ。今会いに行かないと近い未来に後悔するよ。あの時ならまだ間に合ったのかもしれないって。 なんで今更って思っているでしょ。
Yeah, he keeps saying that.
私は今の話をしているんだよ、ザイン。
Did we get him? Did we get him?
10年前にあいつについていかなかったのと同じだ。兄貴を置いて村を出るだなんて、そんなことできるわけねえだろ。
何を言っているんだザイン。
What?
ハイター様が生徒から視察に来た時、
生徒の司祭としてもやっていけるでしょ
その場合弟はどうなりますか？
う。もちろん生徒へ。
Ooh.
ハイター様、せっかくのお話ですが、私はこの村でも生活には困っておりません。弟は幼くして両親を失っています。私はあの子の兄です。あの子から故郷まで奪うことはできません。
Oh.
お気持ちは分かりました。とんだ無駄足でし
Oh.
では無駄足ついでに君の弟さんにたっぷりと冒険談でも話していくとしましょ
Oh.
は俺のためにこの村に残ったんだぞ。
ザイン、そんなことを考えていたのか。
This is so cute. Oh,
お前と私を一
never mind.
私はあの時の選択を一度だって後悔したことはない。いつまで後悔し続けるつもりだ。
Oof, the truth hurts, Ryan. He's saying leave. Become an adventurer. Join them.
兄貴に謝ってきた。勘違いしないでほしいんだけどな。優しい兄貴なんだ。手を挙げられたことなんかなかった。そんな兄貴に殴らせちまった。あんな表情は初めて見たな。
Which means you'll join?
俺、冒険者になることにしたよ。
Yes.
あいつを追いかける。まだ10年しか経ってねえしな。
Here we go. Oh, thank you.
俺の旅の目的はあいつを探すことだ。あいつを見つけて、俺はガキの頃のくだらない夢を
It's not a stupid dream.
途中まで一緒に行ってやる。
やった。
やりましたね。
Okay, so he's only gonna join until he finds him, perhaps. If we find him. See, everyone is saying bye. Aww.
ところで、お前たちの旅の目的は何なんだ？
Heaven.
わざわざ目指すような場所か？死ねばみんな行けんだろ。
ザイン様も行けるんですか？
Oh,
なんかあの子、すげえ当たり強くない？
no, that's fair.
一緒に頑張ろうな。
Stark is like, good luck to us both.
マジで何なの？
Bro, Stark has been trying to figure out her deal for the past couple years. Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. I'm still loving it so much. This anime is truly incredible. Alright guys, that was another episode of Free Run. We just finished up episode 13 and we are officially 4 people in our new party. I am so excited for it. So we have 2 mages, we have a warrior, and we have a priest. So this is gonna be amazing because we have been needing some healing before and mages don't necessarily do all the healing, and even though that Freeran has been taught herself a lot of these spells, she can do a little bit of healing but not at the same level as a priest. So having him
I cannot deny. Guys, Battlefield is back! I cannot deny how much fun I had in the open beta. EA returning to the way Battlefield should be. Now, this doesn't mean go run out and pre-order. I think we can still just buy it at release. If it's a good game, check your local reviewers. But I have been playing the beta non-stop, and I wanted to give you my impressions. Let me turn down the audio a little bit, the music. I want to give you my impressions of it. I had so much fun. It took me back to the days of Battlefield 3, of Battlefield 4, of Bad Company 2. This is encouraging, and look, all they had to do was what? All they had to do was what? Basically, return to what makes Battlefield Battlefield. This is leagues better than 2042.
Oh no! Just take control. Don't let me die. We're brothers.
And by that, I think Battlefield is back. Now, is it perfect? No. There are a few annoyances here and there that, you know, I'll get into in the video when you give you my impressions. But I'm just so happy again, a new military first-person shooter, a fucking good one, a combined arms experience. The sound design is some of the best in the series, in the franchise ever. Bad Company 2, it reminds me so much of that. Anytime you reminded me of Bad Company 2, because it's still the GOAT. This one, really, really good so far. I think there's going to be 15 maps at release. I'm already getting tired of these 3 maps, these ones over and over. But I like them because there's lots of gameplay here that you know is unique in different ways. The Iberian Peninsula, that's that sniper heavy map that I think maybe needs some balancing. I think that's where the problems with the open weapon system start to show, because you can have people with snipers and then RPGs, you know, and so then it gets so oppressive. But there are ways to break through. Surprisingly, I did manage to break through a few times. Some people are complaining about smaller map sizes. Guys, these are, you know, I can see what you're saying. For Battlefield, we want battles to be epic. We want maps to be big. But 2042 maps were fucking garbage at release, and they were empty. And there's what, 11 more maps coming, so I think that should definitely be taken care of. Shorter time to kill, it's like, what? I don't really notice it as much. Have you even played the original Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4? Maybe they could increase it 10%, something like that. But if you actually go on and compare footage, it's really not that much different. I think what people are doing is they're trying to play it as a Call of Duty, and they're just running out solos, just trying to get kills and stuff. You have to play in a squad. You have to be strategic. You can't just run out there, because not only are you going to get killed by small arms fire, you're going to get killed by tanks and fucking 25mm cannons and all sorts of crap, and helicopters and jets and rockets, and it's great. The destruction is great. The destruction is back. And there's only a few things that I want. I really want 5-player squads, because that's the classic for me. Maybe that make games harder for people that aren't playing in squads, but just squad up, join up. It's so much fun. And there's some other little bits here and there, weapon balancing maybe with certain weapons, but these are things that can be ironed out before October. So if you combine this great multiplayer experience that we had so much fun with already, I can't wait for modes like Rush and additional maps. Breakthrough is fun. Conquest is that classic bit. It's there. It feels good. And then if you want your Call of Duty experience, they've even put in some King of the Hill, some you know, quick matches with it's like 6-on-6 or 12-on-12, stuff like that. So it's there as well. But I'm going to show you a lot of clips with my live impressions, me talking about the game, some annoyances, some really badass moments. So check it out. But my impressions of the Battlefield 6 open beta is fun as fuck, you know? And it's good to celebrate when a game, especially a franchise that I love for decades, gets it right. And I'm excited so much.
I'll see to every one of your requests. Rest assured. prepare to die!
Systems green, awaiting your signal. Just like gaming, focus, breathe, and slay!
Ready to investigate? At your command. No one can stop us! Think before you act. No sweat.
It will take effect immediately. Calculations done. Initiating!
Let's wrap this up. Pronto. Consider yourself warned. No sweat. At your command. Consider this a gentle caution. Exar, it's showtime. That's quite the ruthless move.
All right, then prepare to die! Systems green, awaiting your signal. Calculations done. Initiating! Focus, breathe, and slay!
What move would be best now?
Alright, then prepare to die! Just like gaming, focus, breathe, and slay!
Let's wrap this up. Pronto.
It will take effect immediately.
At your command. What move would be best now?
I'm still here.
Consider this a gentle caution.
I'm still here.
Let's wrap this up. Pronto. Exar, it's showtime.
No one can stop us. Rosa, I'm here. Alright, then prepare to die!
That's quite the ruthless move. Total waste of time. Total waste of time.
Calculations done. Initiating! It will take effect immediately.
Grab that chance. Consider yourself warned. No sweat.
What move would be best now?
Don't overdo it, Sylvie. Grab that chance. Consider this a gentle caution.
I'm still here. It will take effect immediately.
Total waste of time.
No one can stop us.
No sweat. Let's wrap this up. Pronto.
It will take effect immediately.
Consider yourself warned. Ready to investigate? At your command.
I'm still here.
I know exactly what you are.
I'm still here.
At your command.
Welcome to my digital domain. Calculations done. Initiating.
Rosa, I'm here.
No one can stop us.
No sweat.
Go ahead. It will take effect immediately. Just like gaming. Focus, breathe, and slay!
At your command. Resistance is futile.
I'm still here.
You need backup? Consider this a gentle caution. Think before you act. No one can stop us! Rosa, I'm here. All right, then prepare to die! I won't give up. That's quite the ruthless move. It will take effect immediately. At your command.
Calculations done. Initiating.
Exar, it's showtime.
Systems green. Awaiting your signal.
Consider this a gentle caution. Well done.
Collapsing. In the last few months, Intel has been very busy for a lot of bad reasons. Intel has floated the idea of stopping node advancement without major customers. It has halted construction of fabs that it's received tens of billions of dollars for in worldwide government funding. It's selling off business groups, outsourcing entire departments, and has filed 30 worker adjustment and retraining notifications, aka layoffs, across 5 states to remove 10% of its US workforce, on top of the nearly 20,000 people who were either laid off or voluntarily left last year and preceding the next round of layoffs already publicly planned. So it's not good. It's in what feels like a death spiral. That's not hyperbole here. This is all of these things that we're talking about today are very bad things for Intel. And it ended July of this year by letting its employees and stakeholders know a few things. Intel let everyone know that after a long month of layoffs, they're not over. They also said that construction in Ohio is slowing. Operations in Costa Rica are shrinking. Plans for expansion in Germany and Poland are axed. The foundry pivot that had been both figuratively and literally bought into under Gelsinger's leadership will now be reversed. And the company's fate relies on a yet not existing customer who trusts Intel 14A enough to invest in it, something that not even Intel is confident doing enough on its own. So everything Intel is doing at this point looks like a complete collapse on itself. It has no marketable CPUs for at least the desktop space. It's just not a good reason to buy them in the space we're in. The fabs, as a result of that, have been shrinking because Intel was Intel's own biggest customer for Intel's fabs. And that customer, Intel, no longer needs as many CPUs as it used to. It has partially completed extremely expensive construction sites all around the world, including some that, as far as we know, will continue, like in Arizona, but others where Intel has explicitly stated that they are stopping, pausing, or halting, or intentionally slowing construction. And this is all in addition to Intel selling its own assets, stopping investments, as it has publicly stated, and this might help Intel stop the bleeding. We just wonder what Intel's game plan is when the bleeding is complete. Like when Intel is lying there and it has managed to stop bleeding out, but it can't get up on its own and no one's around. It's like, what's the plan here? Because they need something after this period to continue to exist. And so at this point, with the slowdown of investments, it looks like there really won't be anything left. And we're either witnessing the start of Intel's death spiral, or we are witnessing, in the words of Intel's now CEO Lip-Bu Tan, quote, a comeback that will be studied in business schools for generations to come, end quote. And that is one hell of a thing to say before we're anywhere even close to seeing the comeback part of that. That is very early to start counting those chickens. They are not even eggs yet. So we recently talked about how Intel feels like the only hope in the GPU market to bring some kind of balance and knock the incumbents around a little bit, even if it's not competitive on performance, just on price. That's still true. But Intel has, at this point, depressurized. It's in a state of free fall. It's stalled out. Intel's fabs don't really have as many orders from Intel's product side anymore because no one's buying them. It's sort of like when the flight attendants tell you that you need to put your own oxygen mask on first before you help someone put their own on. Intel needs to help itself first before anyone else can be involved. But the problem is Intel doesn't know which side of the oxygen mask it's supposed to breathe from. That's the problem.
Thanks, Steve.
We brought you this video with our NVIDIA AI GPU Black Market Investigation backer rewards for our 3-hour-long movie launching on August 15th. The backer rewards include our new Turn a Blind Eye t-shirt, referencing the phrase iterated by multiple on-camera sources when we asked of NVIDIA's awareness to export control circumvention. We also have new sticker packs, including GPU Shredder paper launch stickers and Black Market Nexus Smuggling Company stickers, among other items like our new GPU VRAM glassware with gold halo rim. We recently announced that we're producing a long-form movie diving into how a modern, high-tech black market operates, including interviews on camera with suppliers, middlemen, and users of AI GPUs, plus discussion with smugglers. The project cost us over $100,000 now, and we need help to finish the investigative report. To help fund this effort, click the link below to our Black Market self-made fundraiser, sort of like a Kickstarter, and get exclusive backer rewards only available for the next few weeks, like our bonus video content, group Q&A session with me, canvas print, and our physical items, like t-shirts, glassware, and stickers. Thanks for your support in making this unique video a reality. And remember, check back on August 15th to watch it. All right, so we have a few major topics today. This is recapping all the news from Intel for the past year or so, especially this year. This includes the sort of dwindling down or potential death of at least some of the fabs, the inability to compete in the product side, which we've known about, the death spiral that it's sort of entering right now, and then the plan for what's next, at least according to Intel. There was also some interesting news as we moved to filming this piece, which is that US President Trump just floated the idea of 100% tariffs on semiconductors made by companies not manufactured in the US. This statement could help or hurt Intel. It's really not clear right now. The help part's pretty obvious why that might be the case, because if you cannot have a 100% tariff by making it through Intel, then good for Intel. On the other hand, if it causes complete chaos, or if TSMC is able to capitalize on that, because TSMC also is building fabs in the US right now, right next to Intel, then it might not help Intel that much. But that's not what we're focusing on today. That just kind of came down the pipe as we're putting the rest of this together. Most of this is about Intel handling its own problems, and we'll start with the death of the fabs. Fabs are fabrication plants for silicon. They are extremely high-tech. It is possibly the most advanced manufacturing on the planet. We've toured one of Intel's own in Arizona, including its neighboring construction site. Hopefully those finish. Otherwise, our documentary tour will just become useful B-roll for someone in the future documenting the end of Intel. That video is worth watching, though, if you want to learn how these places work. It's the same for all of them. In Intel CEO Lip-Bu Tan's July 24th statement this year, titled Steps in the Right Direction, released alongside Intel's second quarter 2025 financial results, the newly appointed CEO declared, quote, going forward, our investment in Intel 14 Angstrom will be based on confirmed customer commitments. There are no more blank checks. Every investment must make economic sense. We will build what our customers need when they need it and earn their trust through consistent execution, end quote. Mr. Tan, laying off employees is one thing, but executing them is just taking it way too far. I mean, I don't think we need to, oh, that's not the kind of, the point stands. This is a huge change from how recent and now stepped down CEO Pat Gelsinger was running the company, where his approach appeared to be heavy investment into Intel technologies, heavy investment into fabs, spend money to try and catch up as best as possible, because Intel was and is so behind in certain areas that his approach seemed to be spend the money to try and fix it. And the fabs were his big project in particular. Tan is cutting everywhere possible, and these are opposing strategies. But interestingly, cutting the spend partway through the execution of a plan seems risky for new reasons. We think Tan's statement is extremely concerning for Intel. By pausing its 14A manufacturing process, Intel is giving up the race for cutting-edge process nodes, further reducing competition for the most technologically advanced foundries on the planet. It would just be TSMC now. Additionally, Intel's decision would likely cost it hundreds of millions in R&D and manufacturing facilities and equipment that may go unused. You could look at that and say, sunk cost fallacy, it's better to cut it now than to keep pouring money in. But no matter how you look at it at this point, there is waste being produced on one side or the other. Intel's announcement to pause 14A comes less than a month after Reuters reported on Intel allegedly exploring a shift into 14A, making Intel's drastic decision seem even more uncertain. Tan continued on, saying, quote, "We will take a fundamentally different approach to build our foundry business. Over the past several years, the company invested too much, too soon, without adequate demand," end quote. Gelsinger's approach appeared to be spend money to make money. It really looked that simple. And this is totally different. Prior to Tan, Intel had, under Gelsinger, fully embraced this IDM 2.0 strategy. This was a foundational change that distinguished Intel's products division from Intel's foundry division and allowed the foundry to offer manufacturing services to fabless chip makers or designers, and allowed the products division to outsource its manufacturing. Fabless chip makers or designers include NVIDIA, which has floated being a customer to Intel, and AMD. AMD actually used to own fabs, and not only that, its founder was once quoted as saying, quote, "Real men have fabs," end quote. AMD is now fabless. Under Gelsinger, the company continuously poured money into several fab construction projects and invested just as heavily into manufacturing and R&D. It's obviously not this straightforward, but we can kind of understand the logic behind, we tried, if you build it, they will come, under Gelsinger, and it didn't work. So now let's do the opposite and try cut all spending under this other guy who's just come in. But the problem is that they didn't build it. They poured the concrete slab and they brought the porta potties in for their future store, and then they said, hey, wait a minute, there's no customers yet. This isn't working, we better just stop now. So Intel is stuck between two extremes of maybe under and over investment. Some of these, again, are continuing. As far as we know, Arizona's moving forward. But Intel has publicly stated its plans to slow or stop construction elsewhere. Unfortunately, Intel could not have picked a worse time, we think, to finally change its mind on foundries. The company had already invested so much capital in its pivot into fabs and even began receiving taxpayer money from government-funded CHIPS Act payments at around $8 billion, down from 8.5 or so after long delays and Gelsinger throwing the US government under the bus for dragging its feet. And in addition to this, it had received promises from other countries around the world, and now it's decided it wants to change direction again, and all without ever giving the foundry a full chance to actually be complete and recoup the costs. Now, in some sense, these are a little bit disconnected, in that there's a lot of money and it isn't all just in one giant money bucket, although I'm sure Intel wishes it were. They'd have to go to NVIDIA for that and ask Jensen to borrow some. But it's not all in one bucket. And so you could say, well, but they're still producing the fabs, they're still building the fabs in some of these locations. So they're still letting it get there. The thing is, though, we don't actually know that. We don't really know how far they're gonna go with this at this point, because it's been non-stop cuts for like the last year now. Every month there's some big news, and I think everyone's just sort of waiting to hear what's next, what project gets the axe after this one. And it's like Intel went all in on a poker hand, and then they decided to just get up and leave the table, and leave all the chips there and not even see what card turned over next. In the risk factors section of its 10Q SEC filing, posted with the quarterly financials, Intel revealed its uncertainty and acknowledged the risks. This is standard for these filings. Intel said, quote, "If we are unable to secure a significant external foundry customer for Intel 14A, our next generation semiconductor manufacturing process technology, we may pause or discontinue our pursuit of next generation leading edge process technologies, which may have significant strategic business, financial, operational, and reputational risks and repercussions," end quote. Yes, we could have told them that.
Thanks, Steve.
Intel acknowledged several other risks it would be subjected to if it paused or discontinued 14A, including the risk of products becoming dependent on TSMC, who Intel stated it would receive competitively disadvantaged pricing from. The risk of significant R&D and manufacturing losses, like we just talked about. The company pointed out over $100 billion in property, plant, and equipment net on the balance sheet in its Q2 2025 results, as we understand them, and stated it would likely discontinue fab construction in Ohio if 14A paused. The risk of being required to repay government funding or fees for not satisfying certain construction and or wafer requirements in certain agreements. The risk of losing key talent and expertise, and the risk of limiting Intel Foundry's ability to attract external customers. And the company stated this as well, quote, "We've been unsuccessful to date in attracting significant customers to our external foundry business," end quote. And, quote, "If potential customers for our upcoming Intel 18A-P node believe we are no longer committed to continued development of next-generation leading-edge nodes, Intel 14A and beyond, they may be inclined to remain with their current foundry partners and unwilling to make the significant investments of time and resources needed to develop products on our nodes," end quote. Finally, the company affirmed that, quote, "Any decision to pause or discontinue our pursuit of Intel 14A and successor leading-edge process technologies may be effectively irreversible," end quote. Now, when we've seen foundries get stuck on nodes in the past, at least in the past 16 years, maybe only 10 of those, I've really been somewhat paying attention to it. Not necessarily competently, but I've been paying attention to it somewhat. In the last 16 years or so, the times I've seen companies get stuck on a node, it does seem like they really struggle to get unstuck, just because the cost is so enormous to compete, and as soon as someone pulls ahead, if they have too much of a lead, everyone becomes their customer, and it's too late. And we saw this with Global Foundries. Global Foundries got stuck on 14 nanometer and abandoned development of 7 and 5, as reported by Anantech, which is gone, and preserved by Level 1 Tech's forums. This has sort of happened before. If Intel actually were to abandon advanced nodes, we think it genuinely might be game over. They might be in an unrecoverable state. At that point, like the competition, it's going to be Taiwan's TSMC and probably whatever state-funded semiconductor manufacturer is the most successful in China, for example. And beyond that, there's not a lot left. I mean, Samsung's making stuff. Of course, there's companies, SK Hynix, Micron, these makers of memory, makers of MOSFETs, ICs, things like that. They exist. Global Foundries still exists. But this sort of super high-tech CPU, GPU class silicon, there's not a lot of options out there. And Intel walking away from it, that's going to be eventually something that consumers will feel even more than they do now as well. It should be reassuring that Intel is at least aware in its risk statement of what it stands to lose. But we find it almost more concerning that the company understands that risk and is still considering taking it and pausing 14A. Laying off a quarter of the company again and stopping investment into 14A, it might reduce operating costs in a way that slows the bleeding. Maybe it helps with liquidity or something. But it's barely a drop in the bucket, we think, as people who aren't experts in like these multi-billion-dollar operations financially, but it just seems like a drop in the bucket compared to the potentially massive loss in the long run of just not being competitive anymore, even in fabrication. And this could be a death knell to Intel's fabs, we think, if they don't proceed carefully. Unless Lip Bhutan can see something that nobody else can, this indicates a collapse, or in the very least, to quote Costanza, shrinkage of several significant arms of Intel's business. It doesn't look good, just like the shrinkage. And besides, the new CEO hasn't once given us the reassurance that only a parent can.
So kids, Papa's here.
Oh, how we miss his memes. Tim, our news editor, tells me regularly how a parent can.
So kids, Papa's here.
Oh, how we miss his memes. Tim, our news editor, tells me regularly how he misses having new Pat Gelsinger clips to pull from. Now, continuing in its push for short-term cash, Intel began breaking some of its business groups into smaller scale groups that it could sell off often while remaining an investor in them. In April, Intel sold its Altera business, a semiconductor solutions company, to Silver Lake while remaining a 49% owner. In June, it outsourced its marketing department and killed its automotive business the following week. In July, an Intel spokesperson informed the media, quote, "We plan to establish key elements of our networking and communications business as a standalone company, and we have begun the process of identifying strategic investors. Like Altera, we will remain an anchor investor, enabling us to benefit from future upside as we position the business for future growth," end quote. The telecommunications company Ericsson, seemingly most dependent on Intel's NEX group for the use of its radio access network, or RAN chips, appears most likely to invest in the now independent networking group. Intel also mentioned another sell-off, quote, "In line with Intel's commitment to strengthen its balance sheet and monetize non-core assets, the company sold, via a secondary offering, 57.5 million of net Class A shares of Mobileye in July 2025, adding approximately $922 million to the balance sheet. Intel remains the majority shareholder in Mobileye and continues to have strong conviction in its long-term growth opportunity," end quote. According to its balance sheet, Intel raised its current cash assets by $1.4 billion in the first 2 quarters of 2025, despite losing roughly $4 billion in current total assets. Now, the fab business decisions, they look bad. It's kind of like a flailing, panicked slow down, shut down, sell off of anything they can find in the company. They're flipping couches over right now, digging through the cushions. Maybe they'll take the coffee and the free bananas away again. But currently it feels like there's no real map marker for where Intel is going. They just know they need to try and stop spending money. And to really understand how much Intel is cutting spending in every possible sector, it helps to rapidly recap some of the layoffs. Last year, Intel laid off around 15,000 people and even cut the free coffee and bananas, as referenced earlier. But it has since resumed that part. More than 15,000 people left, though. It's somewhere between 15 and 20,000, as we understand it, with a lot of people leaving voluntarily. Intel internally offered, as we understand it, voluntary departure, where people could take whatever deals they may have had for leaving the company and get out early without being officially laid off. And that would have affected the publicly reported number for layoffs at that time. The company hasn't stopped bleeding employees for over a year now, though. So for 2025, on July 7th, layoffs began for 696 employees in Chandler, Arizona. July 11th, 398 employees were laid off in Folsom, California. On the 15th, Intel laid off 953 employees across 6 Santa Clara offices, 2,392 across 4 Oregon campuses, and 110 from Austin, Texas, totaling 3,455 employees laid off in a single day. The following day, Intel announced 227 more layoffs, impacting its facility in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. Oregon took the biggest hit, making up over half of the recent layoffs, and by recent we mean like a month ago, impacting 2,392 employees across 4 facilities. Oregon was also the only state to include a detailed list of the positions of those laid off. According to the listing, the employees most impacted were engineers and technicians working in modules, followed by those in process integration and yield, which Intel really shouldn't be screwing with right now, but I guess we've forgotten about the oxidation problem. Out of the 2,392 layoffs in Oregon, there were 412 module equipment technicians, 307 module development engineers, 148 module engineers, 92 process integration development engineers, 55 yield development engineers, and 49 process integration and yield technicians. There were also a total of 10 VPs from the Oregon campuses affected by layoffs in various departments. Now, some of these are management jobs, and when Lip Bhutan joined, that's what he said. He said he'd get rid of middle management layers. We reported on that. But a lot of the ones we just read, they are not management jobs. They are manufacturing jobs and engineering jobs. And manufacturing jobs specifically are the very jobs that Intel promised the United States government when it took the $8 billion of taxpayer money from the CHIPS Act to build fabs. The whole thing was it's going to, as they like to say to governments, quote, create jobs. And that was when Intel was promising a $100 billion investment in total in its US-based silicon facilities. These weren't unexpected layoffs, though. New CEO Lip Bhutan, who comes from Cadence, the company recently in the news for pleading guilty to violating U.S. export controls while Lip Bhutan was CEO of Cadence, has continuously expressed the need to streamline Intel's internal processes since being appointed. In his April 24th statement to shareholders, titled Our Path Forward, Tan stated, quote, "We are seen as too slow, too complex, and too set in our ways, and we need to change. That's why I'm proud to announce our new Intel Crime Fab. We will fabricate criminal charges in exchange for money, and the fines will always be lower than the amount we..." Oh wait, no, I misread that. That's actually not what that says. It's not even close. I don't know how that got in there. That's weird. It says something about vital changes for the companies. Maybe he's changed how things operate under him. These mainly consisted of empowering engineers, whatever that means, and downsizing the team for cost and streamlining purposes, and returning to office. Surely that's the part that'll fix this. Tan also ended with his hopes to, quote, pull off a comeback that will be studied in business schools for generations to come, end quote, which seems very bold to say so early. It's sort of like if you're about to do a sick jump, and you say to your friend, watch this. In the statement, Tan described how, quote, many of the changes we will be driving are designed to make engineers more productive by removing burdensome workflows and processes that slow down the pace of innovation, end quote. He also stated, quote, I've been surprised to learn that in recent years, the most important KPI for many managers at Intel has been the size of their teams. Going forward, this will not be the case. I'm a big believer in the philosophy that the best leaders get the most done with the fewest people. We will embrace this mindset across the company, which will include empowering our top talent to make decisions and take greater leadership of key priorities, end quote. In its most recent quarterly report, Intel announced plans to reduce, quote, headcount by approximately 15%, end quote, and, quote, end the year with a global workforce of about 75,000 employees as a result of workforce reductions and attrition, end quote. Something about this is familiar to about 24 years ago. For reference, the last time Intel had 75,000 employees that we could find recorded, or fewer than that, was in 1999, the same year it released the Pentium 3. In 2025, Intel started the year with 99,500 employees in its core workforce, so Tan's end goal would ultimately reduce Intel's headcount by about a quarter or so, or 25,000 people in a single year. Intel also ended projects in Wrocław, Poland, where it had expected to create 2,000 Intel jobs, and in Magdeburg, Germany, where 3,000 Intel jobs were expected, but are now gone. Additionally, Intel decided to shrink the assembly and test operations in Costa Rica, where it employed over 3,400 people. An Intel spokesperson told The Verge that over, quote, 2,000 Costa Rica employees should remain to work in engineering and corporate, end quote, so the site will see a reduction of around 1,400 jobs. In Intel's Q2 report, the company listed 96.4 thousand employees in its so-called core workforce globally, meaning 3,100 layoffs had occurred in the first half of the year. As we understand it, all of the recent layoffs occurred after June 28th. This is also seemingly for W-2s. We're not exactly sure how 1099s or contractors would be affected here. So the recent layoffs being after June 28th would be when Intel recorded its second quarter data, meaning the current employee count is likely significantly lower than the 96.4 thousand listed and won't be reflected until the next filing. That brings us to the product side. We're going to keep this short since most of you already know how bad Intel's product side has been for the last several generations of CPU. Intel's product division has been unable to provide any support or relief for the company. It's launched one bad CPU after another, crushed the company's reputation with monumentally inept responses to the oxidation and voltage instability and degradation issues on the 13th and the 14th gen. Intel has not only outperformed at every single price class with its Core Ultra series versus AMD's desktop CPUs, it has faltered in its fabrication and design abilities in a way that harmed enterprise relationships. Found via WCCF Tech, large German PC component retailer Mindfactory, which has problems of its own, shared its CPU sales from July, highlighting the extent of AMD's lead in the current desktop CPU market. According to the Post, AMD sold over 12,500 CPUs to Intel's 1,100, resulting in a 92 to 8% split in market share by new units sold, and a split in revenue closer to 94 to 6%. We checked our own affiliate data, and we can confirm that most of our viewers are buying AMD. It varies, but typically it's above 80% of new CPUs sold. On Amazon, the top 25 best-selling CPUs consist of 19 AMD processors to 6 Intel processors at the time we wrote this. Not to mention, 4 out of the 5 Intel Core Ultra processors that are listed on Amazon are currently discounted below their MSRP, further emphasizing Intel's inability to compete with AMD's current generation of desktop offerings, even with the marked down price of its processors. Now, Intel makes more than just desktop CPUs, but that's okay because it's also getting killed in things like handhelds, so that leaves basically laptops. Despite current struggles, Intel has long held the lion's share of the CPU market and continues to maintain it by just worldwide usage. However, AMD is outselling Intel in our category for desktop and will eventually chip away at the market share total. And ultimately, holding share from old CPUs doesn't make Intel new money, which is what it needs. So currently, it looks like Intel's goals right now are to cut costs and maybe improve short-term cash flow or be a little more positive on cash flow where possible. For the time being, Intel might have enough room to keep its head above water, but this is a situation where the water is still rising. And so this strategy, it really only works a couple times before you're out of things you can sell and cut. Like at some point you exhaust all those options. So unless Tan's approach relies on laying off another 25,000 in 2026, we're not exactly sure where the end game is. It takes a really long time for these companies to make even a CPU, to bring it through design to production. Then it has to be competitive. And so even just the window on making hopefully competitive products in the CPU space, that's a pretty long window. GPU, we know they are price competitive, but from as far as we understand, they are either making unbelievably small amounts of money or are potentially negative on some of those sales. So it's not looking good for Intel. AMD once had its own hard times, though. So it is possible to recover. AMD did it. You look at them today, they are doing amazingly. But there was a period where AMD was close to bankruptcy. Shortly after buying ATI, AMD nearly went bankrupt. It owed a lot of money to a lot of people, and it even had to sell its offices and then lease them back. So it lost that asset of the buildings, burned them in favor of a short-term cash injection from the sale. That probably looked like its own death spiral. It took about a decade after that for AMD to begin to become the company that it is today. It clearly worked, but there were a lot of moments where AMD was make or break. And in fact, in our own interview with AMD's engineering team, we were previously told that AMD, quote, bet the company, end quote, on Zen. Now, AMD at that time was really scrappy, and there wasn't a whole lot of corporate structure left once they were at that point. Even today, on our side, just on the press side, working with AMD versus working with Intel, it is unbelievable how different they are. I mean, Intel, if we wanted to talk to literally any employee there, the amount of people that request would have to go through, and then the answer that would get filtered back down, it's nothing like AMD. AMD, I can like email a guy and get his answer, and that's kind of it. So, and that's just on the press side. It just kind of gives you a picture of how the companies operate culturally. So it's a totally different mindset. And for Intel to recover, just my own opinion, I feel like Intel needs that scrappier startup mindset. And the GPU side has that. But obviously the GPU side is not enough to sustain Intel. So like they need to get some of that over to the CPU side and maybe the foundry side and have more of that, I don't know, like just less, like they care more, less corporate, less bullshit. And maybe some of what Tan is doing will help with that. But one thing that it doesn't help with is morale. And that could be damaging. So anyway, Intel, in the very least, looking back at all this whole report, the one takeaway we have reading Intel's own words is that, and this is what, if Gordon Ma-Un were able to join for this and we ran our piece, is Intel actually screwed? I think, at the end of that conversation, my answer to that piece would be that without a customer for 14A, Intel is screwed. And I'm pretty confident that his answer would also be that right now it looks like Intel is screwed. And then he'd have some positive side of maybe they can fix it. And maybe they can. AMD did it. That's probably the best indicator we have that is possible. Whether Intel can do it, we don't know. They're totally different people running the companies. So we'd like to believe that Lip-Bu Tan is playing some kind of 5D galaxy brain chess that none of us are intelligent enough to understand, and it'll just like work out great. But obviously things are looking very grim for Intel at the moment. But it's not just Intel that it's looking grim for. Even the CEO looks like he's got some hard times ahead. US President Donald Trump called for Lip-Bu Tan to resign just a couple days ago. Trump stated, quote, "Lip-Bu Tan is highly conflicted and must resign immediately. There's no other solution to this problem," end quote. This is coming from the guy who, like a week ago, said he didn't know who Jensen Huang was, by the way. So, like, putting a spotlight like this on a specific guy in the industry, well, I mean, you can look at their stock price. It had an effect. Intel stock, at least briefly, went down immediately in response to that comment.
I said, who the hell is he? What's his name? His name is Jensen Huang, NVIDIA. I said, what the hell is NVIDIA? I've never heard of it before.
But the US government, it's not a non sequitur ad in here because it's actually pretty critical to this. Intel is big enough, even now, and its fabrication capabilities are so rare, and it's an American company, all of these things matter to the US government because Intel has a specific, I'm sure, national security interest for the US government. And it just, you know, you don't want to say too big to fail because we've seen how that works out. And it's not good for everybody else. Although it was for the banks, but that was a different story. But in this case, it does seem like Intel is, the US government has an interest in keeping Intel as at least a majority-held US company that maintains its manufacturing capabilities. It just seems like they would want that in the same way that the US government will bail out other companies it views as important for one reason or another to the country. And so that is important. We don't know how it plays in. I have absolutely no idea. But as far as Intel and from the consumer side, we are definitely, it's like the come on, do something meme with the stick and the poking the thing. Right now, the stage we're at for Intel is that meme, and we are poking Intel with the stick, hoping that it moves or does something. That's where we're at with Intel. So that's it for this report on Intel and what looks like a collapse, at least right now. I mean, genuinely, hopefully they turn it around. At the same time, if they can't, then I don't know, fuck them. Like, someone else has got to come in and do it. The problem is, these fab projects, you can't just be any startup and do it. You need billions of dollars and unbelievable talent. So it'll have a consumer effect downstream. We just don't know what it's going to be if they go under and consumer side CPU and GPU is basically all coming from TSMC, maybe a little bit of Samsung, then that's going to be reflected in prices for sure at the consumer level. But we'll see how that pans out. Anyway, that's it for this report. We will keep you updated on Intel. And as always, subscribe for more. Go to store.gamersaccess.net to support us and our ability to spend time compiling this stuff, doing all the research and aggregation of all the information. And you can grab one of these brand new shirts. This is for our upcoming Black Market GPU video, where we were able to find smugglers for mostly NVIDIA high-end AI GPUs, bringing them into China, where they are supposed to be banned for sale from US companies to China. And the shirt says Zheng Yijian, Bi which is open one eye, close one eye. It's an idiom that was said by multiple people in our deep dive into this story when we asked them, do you think NVIDIA knows? And the answer effectively translated to, turn a blind eye. Check back for that video. That goes up August 15th, and you can go to store.gamersaccess.net to grab this shirt or one of our many other items for the launch of the video. Subscribe for more. We'll see you all next time. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hardware News Recap of the Week. We are back, and in this episode, we'll be talking about Linux gaining more market share in the desktop market, continuing on the trend of Linux being in the news lately for the desktop DIY and enthusiast scene. Gigabyte has some vulnerability issues of its own with its motherboards following the Asus ones that we ran a piece on like a week ago or something. NVIDIA has a delay for its CPU that hasn't been announced, bringing back the age-old and philosophical question: if a product wasn't announced in a forest, can it really be cut down and make a noise and be delayed? And finally, also, Raptor Lake is the problem that keeps on giving. All that and more, and we are back from our trip to Asia. So I was over in Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Zhengzhou, Huizhou, Taipei, Kaohsiung with Tannen on the team, and we were filming a huge story. Still can't talk about what it is, but it's getting closer, and it's very interesting. We'll have a lot more on that in the coming weeks, but for now, let's get into the usual hardware news roundup. This time with less beeping in the background and fewer e-bikes and scooters. Before that, this video is brought to you by ID Cooling and the Frozen A720 cooler. The A720 air cooler performed well in our testing last year. The A720 is a relatively high-end, dual 140mm air cooler with 7 heat pipes. We found the use of larger fans can be beneficial to acoustic performance given the thermals, although you'll want to check your case for compatibility given the taller nature of the cooler and its fans. ID Cooling uses an all-black look for its A720 and includes mounting hardware for all modern sockets. Learn more at the link in the description below. All right, first up, Gigabyte is in the news for the same problem, sort of, that Asus had. So he ran a story about Asus's many vulnerabilities and exploits on its products. They range from software to motherboard, firmware level stuff, to routers at a hardware level. And Gigabyte is now facing vulnerabilities of its own, and they are in 241 models of motherboard, which is, I believe the technical word is a lot. That is a lot of models to be affected, and not to be outdone by Asus. Gigabyte has some of its own problems that can survive Windows reformats. They can also bypass Secure Boot to install malware to systems. The Binary research team discovered a security vulnerability that affects hundreds of Gigabyte modern consumer motherboard models. In the written summary, the research team shared that they've discovered a, quote, memory corruption vulnerability in Gigabyte device firmware that could allow a potential attacker to write fixed or predictable data to an attacker-controlled address, end quote. Regarding the potential impact of such a vulnerability, the group wrote this, quote, an attacker could exploit this vulnerability to elevate privileges from RAIN 0 to RAIN -2 and execute arbitrary code in system management mode, an environment more privileged than and completely isolated from the operating system. Running arbitrary code in SMM also bypasses SMM-based SPI flash protections against modification, which can help an attacker to install a firmware backdoor or implant, end quote. Binary research team noted that reinstalling the operating system would not alleviate the problem, and added, quote, in addition, this vulnerability could potentially be used by malicious actors to bypass security mechanisms provided by UEFI firmware, such as Secure Boot and some types of memory isolation for hypervisors, end quote. And these last parts are particularly concerning because, again, just to kind of restate in a shorter way, it's like the simplest non-technical version of this is shit is fucked. And the reason shit is fucked is because these exploits could allow an attacker to gain access even through a Windows reformat, and could potentially lie dormant until a more opportune time to plant something on the system and gain access. Now, in terms of affected motherboards, the research team confirmed that 241 models are impacted. They appear to span Intel's 6th to 11th gen platforms, but this is a Gigabyte issue, not Intel. This time. Because this affects older systems, there's a few concerns here. The biggest one is that a lot of people don't really follow news for their platform after they've built it. And so there's definitely an issue where it's less likely people are aware of a potential dormant problem if they're not actively following news.